Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, and perhaps even good evening. I can't find where the button is to bring my camera up. Maybe this one. Yes, that's the one. Awesome. Good to see you. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. The Dazaholics Anonymous have met. Lyra is here. GC3D X201 Trevor Hancock. That is really nice. Jeff is here. My goodness, you Alan Art. It's wonderful to see you all. I feel a little bit under the weather, and Kelly Jordan, and also Mr. Brian. Very good to see you. And Mr. Nate and Miss Julia are here also. Welcome, everyone. I feel a little bit under the weather. I got to be brutally honest with you. I think I'm coming down with something, but I don't think it's the big C word. So that is very, very good to know. I think, for now. We've had an extremely strong launch week for Genesis 9. I can't believe the amount of cool products that have come out. And I thought we can go through some of them because maybe not everyone has all the funky products that have come out. I'm thinking about the Victoria 9 Mega Bundle. I'm thinking about the head and body shapes and expressions that have finally been released, which is so exciting. Then there's also 2 Joe Quick products that have come out that I wanted to show you. And of course, Zevo's Growing Up. That was more or less a launch product, which is super exciting. And those are really strong products, and I'm delighted to see them available for Genesis 9 already. So I thought we can just hang out and look through them and see what we can do with them. And of course, not only that, I also have my good friend who I'm just bumped into, which is Mr. John. I'll maybe give you a microphone as well. There we go. John, that's not you, is it? Dang.
It doesn't appear to be me.
It's almost like we can hear you, but we can't quite see you yet. Maybe if I do this, does that? Yeah, that works. Kind of works.
There I am.
Sorry about that. One of those things. Good to see you, John. How you doing?
I'm not sure whether it's a good thing you can see me or not, to be honest.
It's always a good thing that I can see you. To be brutally honest, it's always a good thing. So wonderful that you're here. Wonderful that you can join us.
It's lovely to be here. And I've been chatting with Jay sort of over the last sort of wee while, and as it turns out that while I can model a bit and do this, that, and the other, I can't actually make a picture for toffee.
Right. With Daz Studio or in general with 3D applications?
In general, or with Daz Studio, any or all of them. I mean, there's always something that's a bit weird about them.
Yes. Yes, it's true. It's complex. It's just a complex thing to put a scene together that looks.
There's a lot to it, a lot more than people think. I think
it's true. Yeah.
And as I was, I made the suggestion that we could perhaps show off our lovely new Genesis and Victoria products.
Yes.
And you could teach me and give some tips to everybody else all at the same time.
I think that's a wonderful idea. It's true. I've just heard Esha make a comment on our Daz PA, and she says, why do promo images take so long to make? Because that's basically we have something like a product, we want to make pictures of it to show the product, but then it turns out that making the products really look good. There's a big difference between making a render quickly and making really good render, because there's just
Yeah.
literally like 3 hours of time in between those things. And it's true. So I think that what I found refreshing to hear is that we all have these problems. So even professional artists who do this day in, day out, they just take forever to make pictures. And yeah, absolutely, let's do that. And also what I wanted to make absolutely sure, so this is not supposed to be a sales session, even though the title kind of hints at that. It is more like a session in, hey, let's have a look through the products, and also give you guys the opportunity to ask any of us questions. So if there's anything that you've had issues with in Genesis 9, then, drop them in the chat and we'll fish them out and we'll see if we can, if we can do that. Mr. Totte is also here. Very cool. Also, Lyra, I didn't actually see you there. Hello, Lyra. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Misty Black, how exciting. And thank you for the tip, Techcraft 3D. That's a really good name. I will try that later. It's like the scratchy throat thing and the small sweats and that sort of thing. So yeah, one of those things. Hey, maybe let's start then by, let me show you what I've made for this session here. Can we do
lovely.
This here? That will work. This is the promo image that I've made, and that took me literally, I mean, it sounds crazy when I say this, but it took me 6 hours. And not really the picture, but I've tried out a lot of the pieces that come with the Victoria mega bundle, and in the end I've settled for this. So I think 4 hours was literally playing around with what am I going to actually do, and I tried something with environments, and it was just not having the impact that I wanted. So in the end I came up with this, which is literally just one render. So these are just duplicates of my images, and we have some corrections here, like additional color correction, and this that's just a little bit of extra vibrance here. And this one was just a tiny bit of additional kind of color correction. I think I made the picture a little bit warmer. So this is what the render looked like. And then this made it a little bit warmer. And then I increased the saturation a little bit. And then finally I added a little bit of contrast to it. And then on the top of the stack, I have a vignette just to turn this into that. So this is what the render looked like. And then I turned that into that. And that now finally has the impact that that I wanted. And I think one last thing that I did was that I pushed the crow up a little bit. I didn't quite see that in the large preview, where the crow was just encroaching on the horizon line a little bit. I didn't use an environment for this. I used HDRI for this because that was easier to deal with. This is what the scene looks like in Daz Studio. Maybe a little bit blown out. That's the filament draw options node. Do you use filament, John?
I don't. No, I don't understand too much about it, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. That's something I can explain to you, because it's a really helpful tool. So the way filament and the draw options node works is that it essentially offers up a translation between the
Is it somewhere between being textured and fully irayed?
It's supposed to be the proper PBR engine, but I think it doesn't quite translate all the features of the Iray material descriptions into something that it shows at the moment. So I hear they want to improve that, and I'm looking forward to more real-time preview features, because the engine itself can do it. It's just, I think what's problematic is the translation between the Iray shaders that are described with our figures and our objects, and the stuff that that filament can actually show.
But it's good for constructing and compositing a render.
Yes, so it's lightning fast, and if you set it up properly, then you can match what Iray looks like. So like this is kind of the filament draw options node makes that translation possible between the environment light. That's this one here, environment intensity scale, and then we have the scene lights. These are kind of the point lights and stuff, how bright or not so bright they are being translated. This is then the environment scene scale. So it's what I tend to do is I use kind of a reference setup that I come up with myself, and then I go and make sure filament looks almost like Iray, and then I go ahead and put things together so that I can preview them in filament, and then I switch over to Iray, and it should be kind of there. Like as an example, if this is my filament draw options node set up, I can now go to my render settings and the environments tab on the dome, and if I wanted to have the HDRI in a different position, I can just go and use the dome Y rotation, I just need to remember. It's kind of minus 24, let's say. I can go left click and drag that, and I see the preview immediately. If I wanted to see a different, different rotation, I can see that here immediately. But if I were to do this in Iray, then yes, I have a stronger, like a more accurate preview. But then, of course, you move the HDRI and it just takes a moment to catch up. So it's one of those things. Like, it takes a moment to render even so. And then finally, the only other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is one particle effect that I've added in here, which is one from Kindred Arts, just to get these trail effects going here. So if I go and put the dome rotation over, then it kind of works still, but it's not really ideal for previewing things. So
yeah. One thing that comes to mind while you were showing me or showing us your Photoshop setup, is I've always got the impression that Postwork is cheating.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, and I don't know how many other people are like that. I think perhaps I tried too hard to make the render do everything.
Possible.
Is that the case? Maybe, I don't know.
So I think Postwork is, an essential and a valuable tool to have, because it just makes things faster. And also, you basically don't have to, this is kind of my reason for doing it, is some things are just faster to do in Photoshop than they are in the render. So there's an overlap. So if you're talking color correction, for example, I could go and try to match my render to have this final output here, the final result. And if I just make this a bit bigger here, I could go ahead and use tone mapping for that. Like I could probably add a bit of saturation. So instead of 1, I'll say 1.3. Maybe that's a bit too much. 1.2 perhaps. But the problem is you only really have saturation rather than vibrance. So vibrance brings out blues and greens, but leaves the oranges and reds alone, where saturation cranks up everything. And if I do that here, then that's not a good look for Victoria. She just, like, the hair looks wrong now. I could also pick a different white point. If I wanted to have this a little more kind of pinkish, I could go like this. That should make a difference. So then, it changes the color a little bit. So you can do certain things. But the problem is, of course, once you've applied it and you think, hey, this is nice, maybe that's too cold now, you have to re-render the whole picture. And if that takes 20 minutes, then what takes Photoshop 1 second with a non-destructive layer, then it's probably easier to just do that in Photoshop. Vignette is another thing I can do with the vignette here. So it does work with tone mapping, but if you think, you look at it on a thumbnail and you think, well, maybe I've overdone it, then once again you have to go back and re-render the whole picture. So I think it's a valuable tool to use in combination. The render and the qualities that all these things offer, as well as what the post-production can bring to the party. Good question, though. Absolutely. Do any of you feel like you're cheating when you're using post-production? In the chat, be kind of interesting to hear that.
I think Patrick is somewhat of my mind.
Oh, okay, interesting.
X201.
Okay. Always spend too much time trying to do it in the render. Yeah, it's the thing is, of course, you got to use the tool that you're comfortable with. So Photoshop, all these types of things, they really took me forever to comprehend, and I use maybe like 10% of what Photoshop has to offer. But maybe I can show you another one. See if I have it open here. So like the vignette is a great example. If I think that's a bit too strong, I just make that a little less strong, and I can just do this now and just export the picture out again, and we're good. If I wanted to make that a bit darker, then I don't have to re-render the picture. If I'm thinking, hey, I'm looking at this on my cheap monitor and I need to I need to make some adjustments here. It's relatively easy to just get used to how does Photoshop work, and now we have somewhat of a night scene without having to wait another 20 minutes for the render.
It always amazes me just how many skills you need for this, to produce something that looks amazing.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I have no idea about color balances. And,
right.
Yeah. It's almost like you need a whole kind of digital photography studio.
You're so right, yes.
and the knowledge of how to use it.
It's very true.
Maybe I treat the renderer as if it's actually, if I do it right at the render end, I don't need to be a photographer as well.
I was going to show you something. There was a lot more post-production going on there, but I cannot, of course, find it because I didn't think we were going to speak about it. But it's totally cool. If I find it towards the end, I'll show you. There was something kind of similar to this shot here, in which I had separated the environment and the render in the foreground and the particles, and they were all on different layers, and I just couldn't get the result I wanted inside of Daz Studio. It was a stonemason set, actually. It was Wonderland, and that looks amazing, but stonemason has this habit of changing the exposure values to bring out his colors just so, and they look amazing, but if you do that, then your scene lights don't quite work anymore the way that they do when these are on default. And so I couldn't quite get the figure inside the environment to look as nice as I wanted. So in the end, I set everything up, set my camera up the way it needed to be, and rendered the environment out without the figure, and then rendered out the figure with the exposure values set to normal and scene light so that the figure would look good. And then in the last pass, I just rendered out the particles, and then I composited all that in Photoshop. And the beauty was I didn't have to worry about how do I fit this together inside Daz Studio. I could just do this all in Photoshop. But like you say,
it's interesting, but
ton of knowledge that's needed to make it happen.
But because I've sort of shied away from Postwork, partly because I'm lazy and don't want to learn something new, I learn so many new things.
Like all the time.
And it might just explode. And partly because, I'd sort of been concentrating on making Daz do all the work. I guess that takes a lot of those sort of opportunities away from me, because we often do. Me and my sort of work partners.
Yeah.
We get a scene looking nice, a room. It looks lovely, but you bung a figure in, and the lighting's not right for the figure, but it's perfect for the room.
This is a great example. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This happens all the time. And a figure with nothing else in the scene, Daz Studio copes extremely well. But if you have 3 characters and a large scene, all of a sudden your viewport lags and you're banging against walls and you have to hide things, and all of a sudden it becomes hard work. So you can speed that process up by literally separating all those things out. It's true.
So as a practical thing then, because we want to look at some stuff and do some stuff.
Yes.
How about we do a wee bit of a collaboration?
Sounds intriguing.
Since I'm not the best at making nice pictures or renders or whatever the end result is, if you call it through Postwork, and we don't have to do the background in the same scene.
Right.
Perhaps if you could talk me through how to get what I want, which is a nice figure with a dynamic pose, nicely dressed, nicely lit with a nice camera angle. And then I can render that out. And then you could do the same thing.
I like it.
The environment. We'll get both. I'll send mine over to you, and then you can show me how to, or show us how to Postwork it and make it look amazing.
What a cool idea! So I'm just thinking of the logistical thing. So you could build the figure, so that way we learn how to dress Genesis up, pick an outfit, do some deforcing. We do all that on your PC at your end. That's awesome. You
maybe look at some G9 features.
Yes, do some G9 features.
Some morphs. Added a bit of fitness or a bit of bulk or a bit of whatever we want.
I like it. And you can render it out at your end, but I'd need the same camera, and we'd need to use the same lighting. Oh, that sounds like a really cool adventure. Let's do that. This is challenge. Totally unplanned. I gotta say, this is not planned, but it sounds awesome. Let's do it. I like it. Let's have just before we do that, I think this is an awesome idea. Let's do that. Let's have a quick look at the products that we have at our disposal, the stuff that's been released this week. So just so that we're all on the same page, in case you've missed something And Biscuits, welcome, by the way. Good to see you. Good to see you. Loved our little email discussion that we had this morning. That was much appreciated. So this has been, this didn't come out with the Genesis 9 figure. It was kind of a week delayed, and I'm not entirely sure why. I don't have that information, but I do know that the team have made last minute changes to some of these morphs. So I think they just wanted to make absolutely sure you don't get a product that had a bug in it, and I think that's the reason for the delay. It was not something that I don't think Daz wanted to be mean and withhold it from you. It was just something, it just didn't launch on the day that the figure launched, which I think was maybe the plan, one of those things. But if you don't have it already, I highly recommend that you pick it up. These 3 products here, 4 products, they contain all the body morphs, head morphs, and expressions that you need to essentially follow the last 2 public live streams along, in which we've made the 2 funky characters, they're Hank and Greta, which were my 2 super favorite characters, and we made those together as a community project. So that was really, really cool. So yes, Genesis 9 Essential Shapes Bundle. If you have
those streams are still available somewhere, aren't they?
Absolutely, they're on the Daz channel. They're publicly available, and it's been a super pleasure to take votes from the audience and say, should we make the ears a bit larger? Should we make the chin a bit smaller, and so forth. It was really, really cool. And yes, good point, Lyra. That's a really good point. Tote's made a really cool plugin that will clear viewport performance up a little bit if you have heavy scenes. This is actually really cool. What was it called again? Tote, remind me of the name, because I do remember it. Was it called Placeholder something, wasn't it? There we go, Placeholder Manager, that's the one. Dang, haven't bought it yet. So Tote and I, this is a little bit of background here. This is like how far the community reaches sometimes. Tote and I, we kind of met through one of the Season Pass streams that we did together. And I was showing off a workflow in which you can use proxy objects to make things, to build your scenes a little bit easier. And I remember us talking about it, and it's really, really nice to see a product like this coming out. So Tote has a script now in which some of these elements in your scene can be replaced with primitives. I believe you can choose them as well, and that makes your viewport just perform so much easier. It also means if you have a ton of stuff in your scene, it is much easier to find your way around while you're scene building. So there's some other funky helper things in here, like this one is something that I didn't know was something that happens quite commonly. If you have a posed figure and you think, yeah, that's good, they're kind of in the center of the scene, but I need to now move them into a different position, things can get a little wonky. And I've had this so many times, and it's a really cool idea to just have a lock all bones button on the taskbar and just lock that, move the figure, and then this isn't going to happen. So much appreciated actually that you brought that to our attention, Lyra, and much appreciated that you put this product together, Tote. So yeah, this is a perfect example. This is what the viewport looks like while you're working with all objects visible, but it's also really confusing. What if you're clicking here? Are you selecting the figure behind him, or are you selecting his shoulder?
Goodness, yeah.
And it's just, and also you move the viewport and you just get this chugging along because the Daz Studio has to work really hard. So this is just super nice to have that. I haven't tried it out yet, but it's not on my wish list yet. Now it is. There we go. Wonderful thing. Yeah, exactly. Jay brings together the gang, the Man Friday, all the way from Berlin. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. So this here is the Victoria 9 Mega Bundle, and I think we're going to be using that for the little scene that we're building, which is awesome, John. That's a really good suggestion. Absolutely cool. Mega Bundles, I don't know if you're aware of it, they're the bundles that come with a lot of stuff. So there's so many cool things in here, which is, I think, why Daz have split this out into technically 2 bundles, but if you buy the Mega Bundle, you get bonus items. So let's have a look at that. So this is a combination of the Victoria 9 Medieval Warrior Bundle, which comes with the Victoria figure and some hair by Out of Touch, which is awesome. It comes with 2 outfits, this one and that one. It comes with a pose set, and it comes with an environment. So this is Victoria. Hey Victoria, how you doing? Good to see you. This is the new hair, one of the new hairs. Also love it that it's in the same style as the hair that we already know. So it's literally all made for this figure. It just fits her. It's like a glove. It's really nice. I really like this figure. And then we have this outfit here. Sadly, I've forgotten the name of it, but I love it. I think I've used it in one of my renders. Then we have this Iron Lady outfit here, which is armor. So funny enough, enough, we were talking about armor the other day, John and I, and how to make that, because I thought, armor, this is really difficult to make. And John said, it's just a cloth and you just play with textures, like with magician in you, John. I find that really cool. And it comes with the pose set. And it comes with this ruins environment here. And then the next bundle is the Brave Highlander bundle, which is also very, very cool. So it's along the same lines that you get the figure, same figure, obviously. Also, there's something, if you already have the figure, then the price of the bundle goes down a little bit, so you don't buy the figure again. So Daz are very kind in that if you buy this bundle and you already own the figure, then you don't pay for the figure again. The bundle becomes cheaper by the amount of the value of the figures. It's a bit like the Steam game bundles. If you buy a 3-game bundle, but one of them you already have, then Steam only charge you for the 2 and give you a little discount. So it's kind of nice. I really like that. This hair, different hair, but same kind of style. So it is believably the same color on the same figure. Also by Out of Touch, by the way. One more outfit, second outfit, so 2 outfits and another pose set. And we get another environment, which is part of the, what are they called again? They are called the Mega Terrains by Kindred Arts. And so these are all the products that you get with the Brave Highlander bundle. But then in the Mega bundle, you get all of these things combined, plus 2 hair extension products, not so much to make the hair longer, but to have additional colors available on the 2 hairs that come with it. And you also get a second expression set with the Mega bundle. So John and I, we both bought this, and it is really, really cool. There's a ton of variety in there, and it'll take me forever to go through this.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot there. Enough to be overwhelming, and enough to worry me that I hadn't enough disk space for it.
Well, going through this, then, which outfit would you like to use, and which
the armor every time.
The armor every time. Okay, so this is how I build a scene as well. I'm looking literally at the product page, and I'm thinking, so okay, figure, sure, hair we can play with. Maybe this one, maybe the updo, perhaps. Thinking in practical terms, maybe she'd probably be wearing maybe an updo if she's out in the Highlands doing some stuff. She probably would,
but come on.
Maybe we'll use that then, the updo.
Yeah. No, I want the long hair.
You want the long hair. Yeah. And then maybe we're going to use the Mega Terrain, because there's some extremely cool just light moods in there. And what would you like to use, a bow and arrow with this, or would you like to use a sword with this?
I'm far more of a sword person, I think.
Cool. That makes it easier, because sometimes when you pull the string, which is there's a morph in there, by the way. If you parent that to the figure, this bow, or the string rather, can be moved. So okay, that makes it easy. Perfect. And then a pose, well, you can pick and choose from any of the pose bundles that you have. And expression, well, I'll leave that up to your judgment what you need. Okay, perfect. Then we have that sorted. Great. So John's going to build that. That's awesome. Goodie.
So, would you advise that I put the figure in the scene, and just very basically, and then arrange a camera? And work out whether I want it portrait or otherwise before I do anything else.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we need to probably decide: do we want a wide shot, or do we want more like a mid shot or close up? Perhaps a mid shot is a good thing to just think about. We can also have multiple things, so that you can set up multiple cameras. But just as
perhaps we should let the stream guide us. What do you think?
Could do, yeah. Could do.
Just press the make art button. Yeah.
Make art button.
If I could find it, I would. People keep telling me it exists, but I've never found it.
It's called
weeks looking for that sometimes.
I think so too, Changeling Chick. It is the Brown Bear by Alessandro. I think so. It was in here, wasn't it? Yes, there we go. That is wasn't on this one. Yes, I think it is that one. I'm not sure if I have him. But if I don't, then I totally need to make a render with him.
He's a very cute fellow.
So cute, isn't he? Yes, I do. I would recommend that. I would recommend you bring in Genesis into an empty scene, and you dress her up and leave her in the A pose for as long as possible. So put all the bits and pieces on that you want to begin with. And I would then go and save that out as a scene subset, because that combines the whole figure as well as anything that she's wearing into one file. And you can then go and use that to bring it in to a different scene, like a master scene. So if you had a scene with 3 characters, you would do that 3 times, and then you load your environment, and that's when you bring in the characters and put them into position, all in the A pose, and then you go and put a pose on them, and then that's how that works. Or you can also, if you already know one character needs to be in a sitting position, you can go and load that A pose scene subset and then make them sit down. Like, you may have to deforce that onto a cube object or something that the kind of cloth may fall correctly. So I'll do that all in a separate scene and then save that out as a second subset and then bring that sitting position into your master scene. That's how I do it, because it's just so much easier to do that rather than try to do all these things in one master scene. So if you had like 3 figures, all of them need deforce, and you have a large heavy set and lights in it, and you try to work in that scene, that's too much. I wouldn't really do that.
So you just said a lot of things, most of which I've forgotten. I'm not very good at remembering things.
Let's go to your PC, and then we go and have a look at that. Let's see. Do I do that? I think so. Do I? No. Hang on. Yes, maybe. Do I? And then I do this, don't I? Yes. Yes. And then we can see your PC. Yes, we can.
Yeah. So
take this away. Boom.
What was I thinking? I was thinking. Now you could put that in my mind. I'm thinking of having like a gunfight at the OK Corral with swords.
Let's start with something simple, shall we?
Yes, let's. So people, Genesis 9. Now, between just loading the character straight in and loading Genesis 9 in, is the only real difference is speed, I take it.
And sometimes it kind of depends on in the Genesis 9 figure. We don't see skin textures, so they are not loaded. It'll still take a moment because I believe the eyes have some LIE effects. LIEs take a little bit of time. We have some updates on that, by the way. We've grilled Josh a little bit on our private DA PA Discord, and Josh has told us some exciting things about LIE, so we'll leave that to the end because of some improvements in Daz Studio 4.21 that make that possible. So that character might load a little faster, the gray one. But if you load the character that you already want to use, it'll load with the skin textures as well as the morph applied. So those are really the only 2 differences.
Yeah. And anything with any LIE calculations is going to take a minute or 2.
It might do, yeah.
But there's a setting for that, isn't there?
That's right. And we can discuss it now. So one of the things that's new in the Genesis 9 character is that the eyes are not applied as plain textures anymore. The eyes have LIE effects on them to change things like the iris color and to get some effects on there. And just in case you're not aware of it, an LIE, that stands for the Layered Image Editor, and it's Daz Studio's way of showing not one picture per texture slot, but multiple, a bit like the layer stack in Photoshop. But to make that happen, Daz Studio it doesn't really load 3 textures into your memory at that point. It only loads 1, and otherwise you would run out of VRAM like in no time. So it employs some clever trickery under the hood in which it loads all these 3 images, then goes and combines them into one temporary image, and then it saves it out into temp directory. And that is really what is then loaded into the slot where the combined texture needs to be. And as a result, it takes a lot of loading and saving and swapping out time. And on things like the Victoria 9 makeup, that is quite extreme. So the team have gone to work and thought, how can we improve that? And one of the things that they've done is if you head over to Edit, Preferences, and then to Interface, I believe. Interface, there we go. At the very bottom, there is this slider here, Layer Textures. And by default, so before Daz Studio 4.21, that slider wasn't there. And it was essentially set to the left if it had been there. And that means that once the textures are loaded, they're also compressed before they're saved onto the hard drive and then loaded in again. And that takes a little bit of processing power and has such time. So they've made the slider available that you can choose to not compress the textures on the right-hand side, or you can use a medium kind of, in the middle, if you like. And John and I did some tests actually, and with the slider all the way to the right, we did get a speed increase of 25% on the loading time. So that wasn't bad. So that's, they're not at the end of the optimization, so the team are still working on making that even better. But this is a new feature in Daz Studio 4.21. Kind of glad we have that.
So I'll accept that, and let's just go with the Victoria 9.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Alan Art, good point. Yes, we can talk about this at the end. I think the Victoria 9 makeup has caused many people a grief because it appears to look okay on Victoria 9, but when we try to do this on the Genesis 9 figure, it doesn't work. And why is that? And we'll have some news for that on that for you as well as how the new LREs load. So it's another system that's under development. But yeah, the Victoria 9 makeup product is the first one that kind of makes use of this new system. So remind me, just in case I forget at the end, do remind me of that we want to talk about that.
This isn't a public stream, is it?
No.
I can show textures and things.
You can show textures. Yeah, let's be brave. Yeah. Let's show textures. All right. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, sorry, it loaded with the texture, and my YouTube brain immediately says, "You can't show that, John." God.
We're okay. We're all adults. It's good. It's good.
Are we?
Are we though? Yeah, good point. So.
Okay, so now it's arranged camera time, is it?
No. I would probably just dress the character first.
And
get done with that. Save it as a scene subset, and then we'll deal with the camera setup.
It's Daz Originals, isn't it? Iron Lady.
I forgot. Yeah, there we go. Iron Lady. Top one. That's probably the one that loads everything.
That's the everything.
Yeah.
So I need her selected. You'll forgive me for talking my way through this. I don't do it very often.
Please do. That's why we're here. And this is a really good opportunity to do that. I love doing this. Absolutely cool. This is how we can learn from one another. I always appreciate that.
So now save it. Probably not in there.
Thank you, Brian.
Let's have a look.
A good idea to put a save directory in first. That is a very, very good idea.
Include back these things. Is it me? I don't remember seeing these.
No, that's
until very recently.
That is a new feature since Daz Studio 4.20. Actually, that comes up since then. Before that, when you save a scene file, it would never bring this dialog up. But since 4.20, we have that dialog, so we can be a little bit more selective with what we want to save.
Okay.
So before that, we only had that on the scene subset. But yeah, now we have that.
I'm assuming that because I've got nothing, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to make it any slower, bigger, or otherwise.
No, I mean, it's just the type of thing that is being saved. So I would probably save a scene subset instead, because it will not save things like the render settings.
Oops, that's a camera. Wrong button. So save as scene subset.
That's the one. Dental office, awesome.
Yeah,
I think I just bought that.
I'm working on a dental office.
Oh, it's a new one. I just bought the old one when it was on sale for $2.99.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Or was that the one I didn't buy? I can't remember now.
Oh, maybe. Who knows? Projects. What did I call it? Called it scene, didn't I? Getting old. Setup. There we go.
There.
And just leave everything in for now.
You can do. I would probably exclude the default camera.
Yeah, okay. Other than that, everything's in there. Accept.
Perfect.
So now, in theory, I haven't put the hair in, for example, but if I were going to use two characters, I might want two different hairs. Why not?
That's true. That's true. I mean, for our purposes, I think hair should come with the character, so I'll probably put it on now.
Okay.
Pick the hair that you need.
Our hair. It's down here somewhere. It's in Daz Originals. It's just curly, isn't it? Yes, there we go.
Oh yeah, you wanted the curls. You didn't like the updo. Gotcha. No worries.
What can I say? I like hair. Not in a weird way.
Save early, save often, avoid the Christmas rush. I like it.
So scene subset. Let's just overwrite that one quickly.
Cool.
No camera, accept.
Okay, there we go. So I think I would probably now think of, while we don't have anything else in the scene, I would probably now think of the pose as well. So that's what I would do next. Give her an accessory and a pose that goes with it, or a pose and give her an accessory to go with it. We have two poses.
The ones I want. We've got the legendary, which I think is all the bow stuff.
Yes, yes, indeed.
I'm guessing which I probably wouldn't use unless I have a bow.
The bow comes with one of the outfits, by the way.
It does, yes. I'm going with the sword, so I think it's Noble Maiden.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right. So poses is something that I spend a lot of time clicking off and on and off and on and off and on and off and on, and changing it and changing it and changing it. I don't know. I think I could probably spend, a goodly portion of my, scene time figuring out which pose I want.
Yes, no, absolutely. So here, these pose sets are designed, I think, is that one of those? I think they're designed to, there's two types of poses, or two types of files per pose in here. And one is for the base feminine and one is for the base figure. So since you're using the content library, you can filter them out by literally by folder, so you only see one per thing. But yeah, I think these are the ones that I would use, the ones that are made for the female.
That might be why, when I was messing about with it,
I
had a pose which didn't quite work.
It could be that they're made for the base figure.
I think that one
there we go.
I kind of liked.
You liked it? Okay.
It was two-handing the sword, but the second hand wasn't going in the right place. So where's my sword? I can't remember where the sword's gone. The
sword is probably with the Iron Maiden outfit.
Yes.
Yeah, give her the sword, and then we'll talk.
Can't call it Iron Maiden.
Iron Lady. Sorry, Iron Lady.
Iron Lady.
Oops. And then
just to get heavy metal in my head then, which I love. But,
and then we'll talk a little bit more about what you can do with poses, because that's one of those. There's so many hidden features in Daz Studio. It's let's address it.
So I'm assuming which one do I want, left or right? Right, I think.
Good question. I think it's the right one. Yeah, there we go. But there's also, there's another thing in there. Those are specifically made hand poses, literally in the folder above it. And those are made so that the hands clasp the sword, I believe. There we go. And just for good measure, I would always go and make sure you select the
that moved the wrist a little bit.
There we go, exactly. I would probably always select the top node in your scene hierarchy of the figure when you apply a pose.
Okay.
Just for good measure. I think Daz Studio got a lot better over the years, but yeah, this is probably to clasp the other one. So if that doesn't do it, you can try it out and see what happens when you do that. Yeah, that's not good. Control Z will undo that. So yeah, you may have to do a small adjustment there on the hand.
Okay, or I might just be
we just leave
lazy,
it for now. And yeah,
and pick a different pose.
Or you do that. That's cool.
I've just deleted the sword out of the sheath for anybody that wondered. My brain said that doesn't look right.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, she can't have a sword on and then also hold it at the same time, unless she has two swords, which would be weird. So,
I wonder if that one works. Whoops! Now I'm not selected on it.
And I agree on the red bow front completely.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that one doesn't either.
No.
Never mind.
Is it designed for her
I'm
to
on
have...
the base, not the base feminine. I wonder if that doesn't work either.
No.
Oh well. I would be impressed if they did, because quite frankly, I've been trying to think of a way of making that work for years.
I mean, so with poses, there's always this. Try the pose where she is, where she has the sword pointing down, like here, third one down in the middle.
Oh, not that one.
Oh, like that one is good as well. You can try a few different ones. So there's things that you can do with this, with loading poses. There's a kind of a hidden menu that I wanted to bring to your attention.
Oh,
if you,
please do.
Yeah. So first of all, let's select the top note of the figure. As I said, it's very, very important to make it, to differentiate between that.
Yeah.
So while you load a pose, you can also hold down Control and then double click the pose that you want to load, and that gives you some additional options just to get into the habit of it. So sometimes poses are designed to move the figure away from the center point, and if you untick translation, all those three, then that doesn't happen. So sometimes you see poses in which they're designed for the figure to be, I don't know, behind the coffee counter, and if you want to use that in the center, then you don't want the figure to move, and this is something you can do to avoid that. It's kind of cool. So we don't have that problem here, but we have another thing that's really exciting, which is at the top there where it says nodes. You can switch that from root to selected, and that will apply only a part of your pose to whatever you have selected in the scene tab.
I've forgotten which pose I've selected now. Obviously, let's
go cancel out of that, and let's say the pose on the bottom right there where she has her hands moving forward. Imagine you wanted to apply just the arm movements of that, but you want to use the legs of your current figure as they are. You have to go and select, let's say, the shoulders of the figure first, and then you Control apply the pose, and then it'll only apply to the arms but not her legs. That's very cool. That turns every full body pose into kind of a partial pose.
Sorry, I'm having a moment. Where is it? Right shoulder.
Yes.
And obviously I want the left shoulder as well.
And the left one as well.
There we go.
There we go.
Now Control and apply.
And then we go.
And then say, whoops.
Selected. And recursive is good. That basically goes and applies the pose to everything that's underneath the selected item. So we want that recursive, and then we hit OK, or accept rather, and boom!
And there we go.
Just the arms, not the legs. It's kind of cool because it means you can really blow your pose library wide open. And I didn't know about this.
It's really cool.
Until Josh brought this to our attention the other day.
Oh, good old Josh.
Oh, Josh knows it all. It's very good, very good.
Right, so now I just need to put my hand pose back, which is here. And it is the right hand. There we go.
Nice.
Lovely done.
You know, maybe that could be our pose. I mean, if you find a different leg pose now, you can just apply that to the legs. If you wanted something that makes her legs look a little bit better. Now
so if I selected the pelvis.
That's possible. Yeah, pelvis might work.
And
maybe that's a nice one.
And selected and accept.
Nice.
And yes, that kind of worked, didn't it?
Not bad.
Not behaving, but never mind.
Does this have deforce on it? I don't actually know.
I honestly don't know.
Maybe it just needs a small adjustment on the back.
I imagine so. Yeah. Okay, so that's messing about with poses.
Cool. So I'd now go like what Alan Art said earlier. Actually, it was Lyra, I think. Save this again as you know, figure posed. So just so that you know what's what. There we go. We're kind of getting somewhere. Good stuff.
Right, so next.
So you said we wanted to share. So are we making a landscape or portrait shot of her? Thinking the way she looks, perhaps like a portrait. I'm thinking.
Yeah, portrait. I think.
Let's do that. So
should I set that in here first?
You can do, yeah.
On render settings.
I think so. The first thing I do with these things is that I switch on my aspect frame so that I know what is going to appear on my scene. So on the top right in your viewport, the hamburger icon has a little tick box that says aspect frame.
I don't know where I'm looking.
Where it says default camera, where you drop down the camera.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
on the right
Oh,
of
this
that.
is the hamburger, is it? Okay.
The hamburger's on the right of that. It's like the 3 lines because, you know, bun.
Oh, yes, okay.
And stuff. If you switch on show aspect frame, oh yeah, it's on, that's perfect. But because you're using the active viewport as your dimensions, everything is, yeah, perfect.
So I want a portrait look, don't I? Which one of these is portrait?
Don't know if they have good point. There's golden ratio you can use. Golden ratio portrait, that's a possibility. Or you just make it up, like the Daz promo size is.
Golden ratio portrait. Yeah. There we go. I was just having trouble finding it.
We can use that. I mean, it's this kind of more like iPhone size. If you wanted to make it Daz promo size, that's the aspect ratio is 10 by 13. So either 1000 by 1300 or 2000 by 2600. That's kind of what we've come to use. If you ever wanted to type that in, you have to probably untick the constraint proportions quickly. And then just type those values in. 2600 by or 2000 by 2600.
2000 by 26. Well, I don't need to know, do I? Do it for me.
Yes, there we go. Yes, indeed. That's promo size. I like it. Now, you're in the lucky position that you already have a default camera that you're using. Not everyone has that. So sometimes, sometimes you'd be on the perspective view, which means...
Well, let's do that from scratch.
Okay.
I'll go to the perspective view and get it more or less where I want it, perhaps. I don't know. I want a kind of low horizon, give it a distance kind of thing.
I like it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. Also, the full body shot with the sword in. That's I can see that. I can see that.
Okay, so to turn that into a usable sort of camera, a savable camera that I can share with you.
Yes. Head over to that'll work. Camera icon. And then we go and use the second option down, which is the copy active view. And then the camera will be created with the exact same values that you've got going here.
Okay. There we go. And now I can switch over to that.
Perfect. And you can probably delete your default camera out of the scene just so that we don't get confused.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. So
don't feel stupid, Alan. This is, I feel the same way. I mean, this control click with the recursive poses, I had no idea that was there. But a viewer recently brought to my attention that I keep using this thing that I refer to as the hamburger icon, like this context menu at the top right corner of literally every tab. And he said, you know what? It's much easier than that. I mean, you can use that, but he said, why don't you just right click on a tab? Because that brings up the same context menu. And I thought, I didn't know that. And I find it just so cool that we're able to share tips like that with one another. So isn't that exciting? So it's another
thing. There's so many things.
There's so many things. And you keep finding new stuff all the time, which is just, I find that this partly why I love Daz Studio so much. It's the app that keeps on giving, doesn't it?
I found some recently in Daz. I think you showed me, Jay, and I was so excited. I thought, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, sliced bread's got nothing on this. Mike is going to love it. And I excitedly scampered over to Skype and Mike, I've got this amazing thing. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. He goes, what is it? I was like, I'm not telling you. I've got to show you. I don't want to spoil the surprise. And then I showed him. He said, I've been using that for years. And I was so disappointed.
It's totter. I totally agree with you. If you don't learn something new every day with Daz Studio, you're using it wrong. Absolutely right.
We're not pushing,
ourselves or the boundaries.
Indeed.
So with the camera, if you select the camera, then we should have a look at the camera settings, because so in this shot we can probably get away with using it. I'm going to go and just zoom into the bottom corner here. This is the thing about the focal length that you can set, and you can play with that and see how that modifies your shot. So it works the same way as your digital camera works. If you make it so, in our case we're kind of outdoors, so I'm thinking 65 is going to work okay, but if we wanted to show more of the environment, we might want to go something like 38 millimeters or 28.
Okay.
That'll make it wider, but it'll leave the distance between your subject and the camera the same, and it only appears wider now because you've messed with the zoom setting. And the other implication about that is that that features like foreshortening are changing when you do that. So if you have something like a wider lens and you bring the camera closer to your subject to fill the same amount of space off the subject in the render, you'll see that anything that's closer to the camera will appear larger than stuff that's further away from the camera. And when you do that on a level like with really short focal lengths, it distorts the facial features a lot. So often people, when they do not so much shots like this, but when you go closer to the subject and they don't change this from the default 65 millimeters to something longer, you'll see that it's not very flattering. So people tend to have large noses, and they have like small back of their heads, and it's just like large foreheads, and this is not very flattering for top model.
Yeah, I mean, this camera does terrible things to my forehead. I mean, my forehead is literally that big in real life, but it's this big. Yeah, it's crazy. Don't get me started on my nose.
Bloody wide angle cameras.
For some reason, it turns my hair grey.
It does. Oh, you have brown hair usually. How exciting!
I did, yes, yeah.
Too funny. Too funny. So I think in this instance we can probably get away with it. Try out 38 and see how that looks. Just a second.
38. See, 38 seems like a random number to me. That's like you've pulled it out of thin air. I mean, cameras and me is like 35, 50, that sort of thing. Where did you come up with 38?
Good point. It's yes, it's a good point. So I tend to think in terms of the 35 millimeter equivalent, that's a terribly confusing term, by the way, in this digital age, especially considering that Canon have just announced that they're going to stop making proper DSLRs because the mirror is just no longer necessary. None of it that's based on the 36 by 24 millimeter negative image is no longer necessary because we're not using it anymore. So we can redesign cameras left, right, and center. But these values, they still come from the fact that of the 35 millimeter stills photography, really, that used this particular aspect ratio. And when you have a negative of that size, that's on a normal, perforated piece of film that we often grew up with, then a 50 millimeter
well, you
lens,
and I did.
You and I did, that's true. Not so much the millennials, but if the 50 millimeter lens is regarded as a normal lens, and normal means it is showing on the film roughly what the human eye sees. It's not exactly like that, but it's kind of, that's what they say. 50 millimeter with a 35 millimeter film is kind of a normal lens. Anything that's longer than that, so 60, 70, 100, 200, that's regarded as a telephoto lens, and anything that's below that is regarded as a wide angle lens, so 38, 28, 18 millimeters, and these numbers come about because camera manufacturers had these as prime lenses. So before the advent of zoom lenses that would be able to go from 24 all the way to 70 millimeters, they had these prime lenses which are wider aperture, higher quality, more expensive, less flexible. Not entirely sure where the trade-off was, but those were kind of the prime lenses. And 38 is kind of a mild wide angle. 28, 18, those are kind of very strong wide angles that you use for landscapes. And then things like 120, 150, 200, those are things that you use for portrait photography.
Okay.
That's what I just think in those terms, and that's why I bring up these numbers.
Okay.
Technically, you can use any value that looks visually good.
Okay.
That's,
So ignore numbers like that, especially if you don't know what you're talking about, like I don't, and try and move Jay off this subject because we'll be here until dawn, apparently.
Good point.
Thank you,
Yes,
X201.
Good point. So
okay,
you can leave it
so
like
now
this.
my figure is a long way in the distance.
Now you
I
can
don't
go
really want that.
move in a little bit and see what happens next.
Just using the zoom.
Yeah, zoom. You can also scroll your mouse wheel. You can see how the features change a little bit on the figure. But I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good shot.
Yeah. See if we can get it up our nose. Right.
Maybe angle it. Try angling it a little bit to the right.
To the right. Is that the right?
Oh, actually, that's the wrong right. I meant the other right. Yeah, like that. Let's see.
Yeah. But now I don't like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, do the way you like it. Just thought, I'll have a look at it. But yeah, you do the way you like it.
Yeah. Something like that.
There is actually framing aid if you want to have anchor points. It's what I call the hamburger icon on the right there.
The context menu.
Context menu, right? It's a show thirds guide. If you click that, or if you enable that, then you have this little overlay.
Okay.
Gives you a little.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. You did really well. But yeah, if you line it up like that, then that would be like essentially apparently perfect, even though I like your framing better. Yes, I think that the trick behind this is that apparently on all these intersecting points, if you put important visual elements on there, then apparently it's going to look awesome or something.
I know that the law of thirds is a thing. Is there a similar thing that gives you the golden ratio?
I don't know. Is there? I'm not sure. Have another look at the context menu.
If you're not sure, probably not.
It's not to say.
There's show center axes.
Try that. What does that do?
I think that's
like
just the 0 point.
Yeah.
It's quite handy when I'm setting up, actually. Auto hide view. Auto hide view controls. No.
Okay. Yes, maybe
I just thought it's got this nice, useful thing, but the golden ratio is something that I know a lot of people use. But perhaps that's more useful in Photoshop. Perhaps I don't know. Okay, so I have a camera. And I have it pointed more or less where I want it. I suspect somebody's going to shout at me and say, "Save it, John."
Yes, save it, John. We could add depth of field if you want, but we can also not do that and just do that in the post. So let's.
Well, I was thinking that actually, I'm going to leave the camera in now. I've got nothing that will show depth of field.
It's true.
I've not got anything else in this scene, have I?
Yeah, so in that respect, I can just deal with that when I make the background for this. So yeah, let's leave that out. That's okay. So I think the trick for me and you to get the lighting as well as the background lining up with one another is that if you were to share the camera with me, you can save it out separately so that I could just get the camera, and you do that with a camera preset.
Okay. So what's that? File, save as,
and then there should be a camera preset.
Camera preset.
Indeed.
And okay, well, I'll just copy that location.
Save it, John. Save it. And it allows you to pick which frame and which camera, so we only have one, which is the selected one. That's perfect.
I have a tendency to untick compressed.
Me too.
I don't know if it matters, but sometimes I like to go in and tinker with the file.
Mess around with the text editor, right? There is actually in the menu, in the edit preferences, there's a way to disable that. So that you don't...
That saved me a job.
Yeah, you don't auto compress things anymore. I used to do this forever.
Save me several million button clicks a year.
At least 2 mice.
Yeah. Right, now I need to find our chat.
Oh yes, good point.
Which is over here somewhere. Chat. There we go. And I'll drag and drop that in there.
Thanks. Collaborative working across the pond. I like that.
Yeah. Is that sending? I can't tell.
I think so. I think so. I think I have it.
Oh, it says send.
Here.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I've got it. Perfect. I'm going to go and grab this out in a sec. So then lighting wise, that's the next thing we need to discuss. So if we were to go and use the Kindred Arts mega terrain as a backdrop, that comes with render settings which will govern the light that we're going to use in this scene. So that'd be good.
It was in props, wasn't it?
It was in props, yes. Kindred Arts, indeed, yeah.
There we go.
Mega terrain, and those are the lights. So we can have a look at those. Maybe I think the light storm, that looked quite nice.
Storm?
Yeah,
I think that looks pretty neat.
And this applies the HDRI, and it'll also apply sun and sky feature. You'll see that under render settings. In the we don't have an environments draw option. If you either switch your viewport over to Iray quickly, or you can bring one in manually, that's also possible, then you'll see another thing appear. You could see tone mapping and environment there.
There we go.
And I think because that node wasn't there, the render setting wasn't properly applied. So go back to your content library.
I need to do that again. There we go. Oh, she's looking good. Text shaded. There we go. So back up here. Let's reapply that.
Yeah. And I think now if you go back to render settings, we should see different HDRI. Oh, actually different settings. It just does it with sun and sky. Yeah. So that's perfect. Good. Switch it over to Iray and see see how it looks. This is exciting. Right, Lyra, I totally agree. If you have to replace things, yeah, absolutely. That hasn't quite applied the beautiful light effect that we were expecting.
Well, it kind of has. I think it's just not at the angle that I was expecting it to be at, because I can see the light down this side of the body. There is a definite yellowish sort of storm lighty kind of thing going on. It's just coming down on this side.
Let's do the dome rotation a little bit, like 45 degrees to the right. So he's got it set up that he has got the if you open that environment tab, then we can whittle down some of those parameters there. Yeah, if you click dome and then click that again and have a look at the direction.
Direction. There we go.
And then it's just a little bit less there. No, that's actually not what I had expected. Yeah, click on dome again. I think dome is going to be fine. So he's already got a value in there, which is 272.46 for the dome rotation. And that's cool. We can leave that there. But if you type into the dome orientation Y, if you type -45, that should put her shadow kind of behind her. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there we go. We're getting there. It's a bit of a friendlier lighting from the front.
I was sorry. I just had a brain pause. Well, I was wondering whether whether -111 was the right latitude for Scotland, whether he got into that much detail.
Do you know, Kindred Arts probably would.
Probably did. Yeah.
We can have a look. And when was it? In 2015 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or at noon. Yes. Interesting. Oh, X201 like the original shadow. Interesting. Should we have a poll?
Right.
Where do you think the shadow should be in its original position on the left? Or should we move it slightly further back? I mean, I'm just thinking that most of her face is in the shadow, so I would probably prefer it if the shadow is kind of half on her face. I'd probably also brighten that up with the backlight. We're not going to do that here, but yeah, Yeah, show some variation. That would be crazy. That's very flat. So I totally agree that a little bit of drama should be in there. Alan Art like -45 better. Maybe we can have something like a in between, something between 0 and -45. So try -20. Yes, thank you, Julia. Awesome. Other add-in comments. I like it. Very cool. I love these little polls. That's really funky. Something in between. Yeah, Misty, I'm thinking that as well. We'll fix it in the post, Brian. Yeah, why don't we do that?
Surely there are some things you can't fix in the post.
That's also a possibility. We can put the shadow so that it falls onto the back on her right. That's another possibility. See if you can make that happen. That would be something like...
So go the other way.
Yeah, like 220, something along those lines. Yeah. If that works. Yeah, something like that. And then
it'd be nice if it were tailing off into the distance, I think.
We'll do that in the post. Yeah, since we have the kind of gap on the left, I think maybe the shadow on the... That's not bad either. That's not bad either. Definitely get that drama feel going there. So far, angled is definitely what most people prefer. 76% of you preferred angled. Let's go with angled then. Let's go with maybe try -30. See what happens.
-30?
That would be kind of between original, but not quite -45. Oh no, that's maybe a little bit more. Maybe minus
that's 40.
Try -40. So then the shadow notwithstanding, if we just look at the face,
right, that's -40.
Should we do -40? Should we try -50? See what happens.
-50.
6 hours later. Okay, -57.
Several hours later.
Several hours.
The pose wasn't the longest thing to find.
Shall we do that? Shall we do -50?
Yes, because at least the whole shadow fits in. It's not clipped.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we can blur that out in Photoshop, which is kind of cool. So we can make that blur into it going back. Now, so there's one thing I just wanted to bring this to your attention, just a feature that is available, and you don't have to use it. I actually recommend you don't use it, but if you were to click the icon next to the Iray icon, that is a thing that lets you make an auto color correction in the picture, so to say.
Oh.
So I can see that part of her face where the sun hits her, that starts to burn out a little bit. And
how do we use this thing then?
Well, we click on it once, and then the icon changes, and then we find a spot that we would like to be exposed properly, and then we click that, like here in her case, the forehead. Iray does a bit of calculation and comes back with this. And that may or may not be what you're looking for. So sometimes
I actually quite like it.
It's
except
it's
missing something.
It's a quick way to make sure nothing burns out or nothing's underexposed or overexposed.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there's another way that you can do it. So we basically just click the pixel on an image, but you can also drag a rectangle of something like her face, or click that icon again.
That's the wrong button.
Yeah, that's the wrong button.
Yeah. So if I did a whole face,
yes,
for example.
Yeah, like that, then it'll calculate the average best exposure for this area. Takes a second. It's almost the same. Okay, it's kind of worth a try. It's one of those things. So the reason why I don't particularly like using it is because it applies these changes via tone mapping, and that's not always what you want. So a better way to do it would be, so this is basically what your digital camera would do if you put it into automatic mode, and you point it at something, you click a button, and it makes sure it kind of works out, but it might not look the way you want it. So if you go over to your tone mapping tab in the render settings, you'll see where this change has been applied. And this is also where we can reset it if you wanted to bring this back. Here on exposure value at the top there, oh, I can actually zoom in, can't I? This is what Iray did there. So these are the values that it calculated. Exposure value and shutter speed are linked. So you change one, it changes the other. And if you wanted to reset this, if you wanted to just make sure this comes back to its default, like what it used to be, reset is good, or alt click on the slider. That'll also work.
Okay, alt click.
And then we're back to our previous exposure here. Yeah, I just want to show you.
But I don't think that changed very much. Let me just...
It's a little brighter now.
I thought it was a lot brighter previously, but it might be just my old eyes. There we go. Yeah.
So
apparently it wasn't as bright as I thought it was in the first place.
so I think maybe we'll just leave the defaults for now, because then that means I don't have to worry about exposure. All I have to worry about is tweaking my environment to -50 as well. And then we'll see if we can compose her onto the background.
Okay.
Go render her out at your end, and I will go switch to my computer and see if I can bring in the camera.
Start doing your thing.
Yeah. We'll see if we do that.
Do you object to me just changing, while you do that, and I press the render button, do you object to me just changing a couple of things I don't like?
Oh, please. Yeah, absolutely. Show us what you're changing, just out of curiosity.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just that this hand is obviously not quite right. And I'd like this sword to be less kind of spare, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. There's also the expression that you could dial in. There's also makeup we could work on, but let's you make your...
Yes. How long have we got?
I know. Let's not worry about the expression. We know how that works. You do your thing. I'll go and set up the scene, and then
and then
we'll see if we can go and combine these things. All right. This is exciting. I love this. Working together, even though we're not physically together. This is kind of cool. Actually, this was my PC, wasn't it? There we go. Yeah, there, perfect. Okay. So, oh yeah, the first thing I need to do is to bring in your camera. Which last time I was really clever. I put that directly onto my other computer here, didn't I? I think so. Somewhere on my desktop. And also then I'll have a look at questions. Maybe there were questions that I was totally missing. Demo camera zip goes onto here. Perfect. This is, by the way, just in case you're wondering, this is a different PC than that. This is my PC. The other one was another PC that I use for streaming. That's where John and I are essentially connected. I'll go and make a new scene here. See if we can bring these things together. Parallel processing, that's what it is, yes. The magic ruin all many settings tool, yes. Yes, one of my supporters was recently asking me about this, and I thought, yeah, it's a good idea if we make a little video about this. So I'll make one. I'll totally make one. I'll extract that into demo camera. Maybe I'll go and rename this folder into something I can remember. Maybe John's Highlands. How about that? John's Highlands. I'll map this in my content library here, so I have easy access to things. John's Highlands, currently only featuring a single camera, so I'll go and bring that in, and there it is, camera. Awesome. Now the aspect ratio I'm going to keep as well. That hasn't come across. That you can save this out if you wanted to as a render settings preset. Maybe do that, John, actually, and send me that. Then I don't have to tweak the environment at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be under save as render settings. And then I get the whole light setup that you have. teamwork is so essential, Totte. Absolutely. When I was new to Daz Studio, I was always wondering how teamwork between creators worked and why they actually do that. Yeah, you can put everything across. Yeah, perfect. And then I found out it's just so much more productive if you work as a team. Doesn't matter if it's 2 people or even 3 people. It is just so cool because everyone brings their own strengths to the party. It really took me a while to understand that. Given the time difference, Jay did his bit before John thought of it. Technically correct. Crazy that.
Is someone dissing me?
No one's dissing. We're just, having a...
Is someone disrespecting me?
No, it's about the
shocking.
time-space continuum thing,
I'm only teasing. There you go. It should be on its way.
All right. Chat. Yes. Highlands.duff. I love it. To potential security. Bring it on.
Now, when I render this, I'm assuming I don't want it to render the background. Because the background is the sun sky kind of thing. Is that actually going to render as part of the transparency, or do I just have to turn it off?
You have to turn it off under Dome, I believe.
Doom. Draw Dome.
Exactly. And then now she renders transparently with the shadow catcher that we get with Iray, which is kind of nice. I remember back in the 3D Light days,
places it. Yeah.
We just had to do this. We just had to set this up manually. My goodness.
Right, I've pressed the render button. You'll have to forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. I should be back shortly.
Okay. We're seeing the right PC. That is cool. Biscuits was asking, is the interactive license a merchant resource version? It's something different, actually, but it almost is. So it allows you to distribute 3D assets with applications that require 3D geometry. So if you make an image like we're doing right now, then we don't need it because basically our final output is a 2D image, and that's that's cool. But if I were to make a video game, then it would mean that I'd have to distribute the say the Genesis figure as an example, and that would mean I'd have to export the OBJs or maybe even morph targets or rigging, and I'm really not allowed to do that with the regular license. I am allowed to use the regular license for 2D output, including animations, but I'm not allowed to redistribute assets. So the interactive license does that. So the interactive license gives you the permission to do that, as long as it's not easily extractable. So the idea behind it is that you put the 3D geometry and textures and all that into something like a packaged product that will become like an Unreal Engine project people download, or like a packaged project, compiled project, or a Unity project, or something like that, that people can then run and then essentially use the 3D geometry in the confines of your project, but they wouldn't be able to extract stuff from it and then utilize it for their own bits and pieces. So that's what the interactive license is meant for. It's not a merchant resource as such, but it does allow you to make money with the distribution of those 3D assets as a packaged project. Does that make sense? I know it's a little weird wording it that way, but that's essentially what it means. So it's kind of almost a merchant resource, if you will. Mega Terrain Highlands. So I'm going to go and bring in I've got a few to choose from here. That is kind of cool. Let me go and switch this off, and I'll go to my perspective view for now, and I'll try all of these. Maybe the KMTHL Castle Ruin prefab. Let's see what that looks like, and also let's see how that integrates into our scene. With the lighting we have already chosen. Takes us, oh, there we go. That's, I think if I switch to the camera now, I might go and rename John's camera, basically John's camera, because it already comes with items here. So John's camera would place the character right into here. Then we didn't even think of that. So maybe castle ruins. Either the ruins need to go, or we need to find a different way.
Back a long way.
Yeah. Let me go and do this with my scene navigator tool here. I'll switch this into
very shiny
Iray.
ground. What's going on there? Is that water?
Well, that's just filament really doing its thing.
Oh, I see. I see.
I'm going to change this to the active viewport here, just so that I have the full thing to look at. Yeah, so when we look at it in Iray, it doesn't actually look that bad here. So it's just like grass, and the water starts here. So just checking out the highlands and the ruins here. And I can also just go and remove these things. So if I go to John's camera and I don't want this to be in it, I could just go and, I suppose, just select this and remove the tower. And that might work. The character would be kind of on the right here. If I don't want to do that either, I can just go and remove that as well. Just, feeling my way into what this might look like. That might not be all that bad. I'm interested to see that the shadow is now facing to the right here, even though on our figure it was facing to the left. So I wonder, has the dome orientation been acknowledged here? No, it hasn't. Oh, that would explain it.
Did you apply your lighting from mine, or sorry, my brain has gone confused.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think should I maybe do that again? Highlands, Kaplonk. There we go. Right. So now it's actually made a change here. Or maybe that has overwritten it when I brought in the scene subset. It could well be that that's overwritten.
That the scene subset loads with the render settings. Okay.
That makes sense. Okay, so that's our prefab number 1. Let's go and get rid of all of these things and look at prefab number 2, which is the hill ruins.
Your scene doesn't look very sunny compared to mine.
That's correct. I wonder why that is myself. Oh,
there's some sort of cloud thing going on.
This here is, I think I'm on the wrong.
No, you're underground.
Spot. That is very, very foggy. So if I can find a better way to make the background look than with our render settings, then I can do that. This is Highlands Apply. Now there we go. So if like this, I don't see any shadows here. That's kind of cool. So I'm thinking if we put the figure onto this, that might actually look neat. Yeah. Or did I not save John's camera?
Can you knock the clouds on the head? Are they an object, or are they part of the dome?
They're VDB, so I can go and take those out.
Okay.
I think this prefab here puts your position on a kind of on a hill type thing. So I may go and cheat a little.
Yes.
Just go
cheating is always good.
And we're going to blur some of this out. I'm thinking not tremendously, but a little bit. So this would kind of work, I'm thinking. But like you say, if we don't want to see the clouds, I'll just make those invisible here. Volumetric clouds. Now it's sunny. Just blend in a few clouds here. One's probably like a thinner foreground layer, but this here is the big one that does these clouds here. Kind of clever to do this with VDBs. That's very cool. Okay, I'll go and take this out and have a look at another prefab, which is the mountain top. See which one we like. Yeah, and it looks like whenever I do that, it also applies the render settings that are supposed to go with this. So I'll go and lower yours again. Highlands. Ding, there we go. It's very different, very different. And also maybe just use your camera again, like so. Oh yeah, interesting. All the little cards on the floor, very, very cool. It's just cool to see all these tricks in action, isn't it? That it's not actually a bushel of grass. It might look like it, but
yes, very video gamey.
it is, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's clever to do that. Prefab
Nothing wrong with that.
crystals. Yeah, if it means the whole thing is light.
Yeah.
In
In fact, one of the things I really like about, I think it was Unreal, I was toying around in, you could set up like a plant or a tree, for example, where your leaf cards always face the camera.
Oh yes, like Carrara knows this as a splat, I think. Yeah, clever.
Yeah,
Yes, that is clever.
yeah.
I think Riversoft has a script like that included with his Nowcrowd billboards, that when you move the camera, then you run a script and they all align to the camera. It's very, very clever. It's Scotland, John. What do you expect? Yeah. Well, let's use this one then here. Let's see if we can combine
that
this.
Looks like a good opportunity.
Yes, doesn't it? So I'm going to use no depth of field on this at all. I'm going to do all this in Photoshop. So I'm going to might leave this in focus, and I'll just try to blur out with the gradient here. I'll just blur out the background here. Let's see. Render settings 2000 by 2600. That's cool. That I'll switch this off. 2000 is probably enough, or even too much already. Let's, you know, we'll view it.
2000 iterations, you mean?
For background, you can get away with a lot less. Like you can probably, it's probably okay in 500 already. For characters, you might want to use a few more. Yeah, because look, if we use most of this as a blurred out background, if this is all blurry, then 100 iterations were already totally cool. As a comparison, the animation I did for the title sequence here, that is something I've rendered, I think, on Thursday, because we never had particle effects in there. This was done in Blender, and I always like to have these particle effects, like dusty things that go around. And that was rendered with 50 iterations per frame. So
50. Now here's a question. Perhaps it's something you can show. What if I didn't want to blur everything? What if I wanted to blur the kind of mountain in the background, but I didn't want to blur the grass?
Yes, I'll show you how to do that. So if the figure was in the scene, then you would apply depth of field, make sure the depth of field's on the figure. And Daz Studio would render the background and the figure in relation to one another in one swoop, and it would look really natural. But when we do this in post-production, you can use a blurred layer in conjunction with a sharp layer, and then mix the images together with a gradient. So therefore you have, like in this case, I think we can just stop that, because we have these things, they become a little bit more defined the longer you let it render. But I'm going to just go and stop it here with 400 odd iterations. It's going to be enough. Yes, you can use a gradient on the mask and then blur these things together. I'll just call this BG for now and open that in Photoshop, and then we can have a look at that.
Oh, I think one's finished rendering.
Oh, nice.
I was a bit more ambitious on my iterations. I went 5,000.
But I mean, you're doing the character, so that's good. I would probably have done the same thing. Yeah, so if this is our document, let's go and save that into John's Highlands. And I'll save it as a Photoshop document. Yeah, so in this case, if I wanted to blur out the background and leave the foreground in focus with the character, I would go and turn this object into a smart object first by right-clicking and doing this. And this means I can go and apply effects on it non-destructively. So like I'd probably make a copy and then have one which is the original and one which is the blurred out version. It kind of depends what I want in the foreground. I'm thinking I'll put the blur in the background for now. So this is where I'm going to apply a filter. I'm going to switch the top off so that we can see the effects of the filter. And now I actually know why Substance Painter calls it filter as well, because Photoshop calls it a filter. It's one of those things I just only now made the connection. Crazy. So like Gaussian blur is always a good one. Takes a second. This is maybe a little much.
Yeah, tech rap.
So 10, 20 at the most. 20 is probably too much already. But the good thing about the Smart object is I can now go and double click this again, so the filter hasn't been applied and the image hasn't been destroyed. It lets me change it retrospectively. So if I decide, well, I'm not sure how blurry I want that picture to be, I can just go and change that afterwards. So if I like, after I'm in my final composition, I'm thinking 5 is more what I need, then I can change it later. So I'll leave it at 10 for now. And then if I switch on the top layer, this happens. And if I now put a mask between these, then I can blur them together. You can apply it directly as a mask. I tend to for gradients like that, I tend to just, because my brain works better that way, I just use another layer in between. Actually, I can't do it on the, whoops, I can probably do it on the mask here. So I can put a gradient on this now. On the, whoops, on the mask of this layer. Come on. I think from here to say there. And then that didn't do what I wanted. Maybe we'll try it with a different color. Does that work? Okay, there we go. I think it's the wrong way around now. Should I have done it the other way around? I think it's now, this is in focus and this one isn't. So that happens sometimes. Invert the mask and we now have what we're looking for. So the grass here is in fact in focus.
Oh yeah, I see.
And the background is now out of focus. And if I'm now thinking, I need to change the gradient, you can just go and change the mask. Or if I'm thinking, well, the blur isn't quite strong enough, you can now retrospectively go in and say, well, maybe now I want to make it 20. And then when you hit OK, then you have more blur in there. That's kind of nice. So let's say this is my background here. I'll put that in a group. Call that BG, and then I'll go and grab your character and see what they look like on top of that. Highland Vic, I like it. And it also goes.
I'm not very creative in names.
That's good. PNG. This is so cool that I can literally, at the touch of a button, basically switch to John's desktop. Isn't that crazy? It's just weird. I'll bring this in as an embedded image. Highland Vic. She loads on the top, and that doesn't look so bad. So it's the same, it's the correct size, it's the correct everything. But maybe Victoria now needs color correction independently of the background. And that's what we can also do non-destructively. So if I want the background to be a little darker so that she stands out a little more, I can go and put kind of a correction layer on the top here just with brightness and contrast. And since this is underneath Victoria, I can go and now mess just with the background, or make it more dramatic and contrasty. I can change the color as well if I wanted to do that. I can soften out her shadow in a moment as well, so that it blurs and that it blends in a little bit.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, whether the grass isn't breaking the shadow up, is it? Because obviously it's not there. But
yeah, we'll make that just a little. I'll use the blur tool to make that, to soften that up a little. So if we're thinking the background is okay this way, but now we want to add color correction to Victoria, I can have another layer, so I can put this into the background as well. That's cool, and just disappears here. I can put another such correction layer on top of her. But Photoshop has this really cool feature that if you apply correction at the top of the layer stack, then it'll go and correct everything. So, brighter, less bright. So it corrects both Victoria and the background. But there is a way to clip that to just the layer below it if you hold down Alt and then click in between these guys, and this little icon comes up here. And if you do that, it only applies to the layer underneath it, so just Victoria. And that's kind of neat. So I can go and maybe try the auto correction. This is what Photoshop reckons it should be like. I'm thinking that might be a little harsh here.
It's taken the warmth out of it.
Yes, hasn't it?
Mind you, it is Scotland, as Nate said. Was it Nate? Somebody said, oh no,
X201 did. John's camera has gone through J, yes.
How could it go through, Joe?
And there's all kinds of other cool things that you can apply here. If we were comic artists, we can add a layer, like a blending option to this layer, and do all kinds of crazy things. Like we could, it's not going to look good now, but if we were to give her a drop shadow, we could, add that to her. This isn't going to look great, but if you have objects like graphics that you wanted to separate, you can do that. So
okay.
Drop shadow on a figure isn't going to work, but because we have the cutout opacity here, we can work with these things. Like another one for comic artists that's always good is a stroke. A stroke
so
applies,
put an outline on it.
Yeah, it goes and puts. The John camera is not a joke. We can't see him. Oh, good point, John. Why can't we see you? Interesting.
Because I'm being disreputable.
You're being dissed already. That's terrible.
I'm being disreputable.
Oh, you're being disreputable. Okay, so it's actually something that...
I should stop being disreputable and turn it back on me.
It wasn't even me. John had a, just a disreputable moment. I got you. So like comic artists might want to put a white outline around her. You can have a choice of, do you want to put it on the inside or the outside or at the center line, or how thick you want to make it, like a proper manga thing. Also opacity, you don't have to have it completely white, but yeah, this is something that there's all kinds of things that you can do here. So we probably don't want any of those things, but I just wanted to show you that so you can do that. You can also go and then blur this out and add kind of a funky effect to it. But yeah, we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna take that out. The blurry shadow here, let's work with that. So Victoria has this icon on here that says it's a smart object, and Photoshop does this so that you can apply effects on this non-destructively, and that's handy for things like the filters, but it's not so handy if you wanted to do like a retouching job on the, say, on the shadow here. If we wanted to blur that out to make that blend in a bit, we need to rasterize this layer, and that happens by right-clicking it and clicking rasterize, and then the smart object icon goes away, and we can do we can do things like a blur tool here. Blur is good with kind of a largish brush here, and then first of all we can just blur that, and then we can also lighten it up a little. We can even separate the shadow from the figure altogether. That's another possibility, and then just apply different opacity to the shadow. That's possible. So it really depends on how much work you want to involve, want to invest here. So I think
some grass on her feet.
Yeah, well, that is also a possibility. So we could go and essentially clone part of her behind the background layer. That is advanced stuff. How do we do that? Oh, I know. We're cloning the background layer above her. Now she's gone, and now we can apply a mask to this. If we wanted most of it to be filled in black, we can do that, I think. No, we can't. Can't we? I thought we should. Invert. There we go. And now we could draw on the mask with a brush. I think. Put me into a difficult position here, John. So draw with white, and does this, so that makes her feet go away now. That's kind of what we want, almost. Now we just need to make sure we blend this in.
Is it a question of just altering the opacity of that layer?
Yes, or the mask in this case, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not great, but
not perfect, but
technically
it's enough to.
This is how real Photoshop artists would do that. I don't really do this very often. Opacity on this, I would go and say split these two guys out and make a duplicate with Alt, and then have one that is just her and one that's just the shadow. Let's see how clever the Photoshop tool is. So I'm just going to separate her and the shadow out. I'll see how, yeah, there we go. That worked really well. So Photoshop's recognized this as the figure. That's perfect. So I'm going to go and turn that into a mask. And that is just her without the shadow. Now I can bring this layer back and just turn down the opacity on this, thereby kind of lightening the shadow as much or as little as we want. Also non-destructively, which is kind of cool. So if I wanted to keep poking and prodding with that. One other thing that I like doing is to add a vignette around this. So just darken the edges a little bit. And that is just on the topmost layer. And you can do that. You can emphasize either make a classic vignette like this, or you can go and just focus on the character. So if we're thinking, hey, this is really our center point of attention here. That's a selection on an empty layer. Currently that doesn't do anything, but if I invert that and then use my paint bucket tool, put all that into black, deselect, and then I can turn this into a smart object. And this means I can now apply this blur filter again to it. Like so. And that's not quite blurred enough, so we need to go really aggressive, like 200 or something even more. Maybe 200 is good. And that looks really, really harsh, but if we go and turn the opacity down, then we just blend that in a little bit. And so this is without the vignette, and this is with the vignette. You can still make it less aggressive. Just put that in like 20-30% or so. And you can now also go and put more correction on the background again. And now we want to make that maybe a little more hard contrasty, whatever. So it's a bit like the lights in Daz Studio. You set them up, and then you go and correct one other thing that requires a correction on yet other things, and then you kind of just do that. But yeah, there we go. That's what we've.
When do you stop
together.
though? That's the question. Right?
Do you know? You stop when you feel ready. I think that's really important. You got to stop when you feel ready. So yeah, the power of the vignette here. Not bad. And then on the overall color correction, if we wanted to have the whole thing like a different color tone, if we wanted to make it cooler, then you can use something like the color balance. You can also use a photo filter, but then like if you go with the midtones here, make it warmer, like red and yellow, then we have this. It's a possibility. Or since it is the Highlands, maybe it needs to be a little bit cooler. Like, look at that. It's not very warm up there. And the Shetland Isles. So it like you say, when do you stop? I think you stop when you're happy as an artist, I suppose. And you can just play so much with these tools, like add vibrance, and that brings out the blues, but not so much the orange and the red. So like this is regular saturation, and if you look at the sky, if the sky looks good now, her face and her hair looks really bad. So saturation is not a recommended thing to use. But if you use vibrance, then you can make the sky and the grass come out a bit more, and it takes quite a while before you destroy her face.
I think I have a tendency to take saturation out, if anything.
Oh yeah, make it a little more desaturated.
I don't know why. Just if it's too colourful, it's a bit like a processed photograph, if that makes sense.
It's true, yeah. What did you prefer, a cooler image, or did you prefer this to be a little warmer?
I don't know, really. I mean, it's Scotland, so it ought to be cooler.
Yeah, true.
I think Trevor wants some more of that grass in front of her boot.
You want some more of that grass? I don't really know how to do that properly, Trevor. I gotta be brutally honest.
take some of the put some of the opacity back in again. I think
Didn't I do that? Like this was the opacity on the mask. I just put more of that. That's I got. Do you know what? Oh, what I can do is just paint with a different color here. So instead of painting with white, I can go and paint with kind of a gray. That might do it. There we go.
There you go.
But then there's still not enough grass. So this is I don't really do much of Photoshop trickery. I do remember that for our last Daz Plus stream, I submitted a promo of Victoria where I forgot for her to wear eyebrows, which is really, really bad.
Yeah.
And
Did I leave eyebrows on?
But Trevor and his team did a great job, and they put eyebrows in Photoshop. I think he sent me a message and said, "Jay, can you send that picture again?" And I was doing something else. I didn't read it until much later, and then I saw it on the newsletter. Oh, she has eyebrows. What's he talking about? Oh, I forgot he put them in. That's amazing.
I think Trevor needs to be doing a Postwork stream for us.
Trevor, absolutely. I should send you the Photoshop file, and you should go and do it now. This would be like an extension there. I tell you what. So John and I were thinking about doing some products together, like nothing fancy, something rather simple. But what we were half planning, and this is kind of just one of those future ideas out there. What we were half planning is to do this live on stream together, much like we do this now. But product working sessions, they take a long time. So you're literally seeing us hours just doodling around, and those would be ideal for Twitch. So we're thinking of maybe doing some of that. Maybe not the whole process, but every so often it keeps us accountable. It also makes us do something, and it would be great if you just join in and you can chip in with questions or even suggestions. And I kind of like working like that. Adjust the strength. Didn't I do that? Adjust the strength of I've given the mask to the group, so maybe we can reverse that. Yeah, you'd be up for that? Absolutely. Me too. And it's nice. So there's a couple of things that we were thinking. One is the Carol outfit. We want to expand that. That was the freebie that we gave away a while ago, but it's just an outfit. So we want to add something like a little Fitbit icon, like a Fitbit type armband, and maybe some shoes. But of course, I don't know how to do it. John knows how to do it, but if he can show me how, then we'll learn. All of us learn something in the process.
Indeed, and I'm not the best in Daz and rigging and setup and all that sort of stuff. So
I'm just going to have a quick look at questions here, see if there's anything else I have forgotten to look at. We didn't actually look at Victoria 9's makeup on regular Genesis figures. We teased that, and then we totally let you down by not showing you. So I'm totally going to do that next. Forgotten Lecture says, any chance they will improve the shoes boots conversion scripts for Gen 8 8.1 items? Many end up completely screwed. Do you mean Genesis 8 shoes on Genesis 9, or do you mean the auto fitting templates for Genesis 8, like fit Genesis 3 on Genesis 8? Alan Art, I haven't checked, but does Genesis 9's eyes go black if you move them away from the world center? I've been prone to building scenes around the characters now because of that. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. That's interesting. 8 or 9. Okay. I don't know. I know there are some other things that are being planned in regards to fit templates, like for high heels, for example. That is one that I believe Mara wants to make a high heels template. I'm looking forward to that. I think there's a lot more to come with Genesis 9. Should I have saved my scene here? Let me go and save that. Jay's Highlands. So yeah, one is this high heels template that we want to see, and I think there's also a fitting template that'll come for hair. And another thing that Josh has told me about is that we're going to see the power pose templates in Genesis 9, but there's only so much a single man can do, so it's coming, but it's just not with us just yet. So yeah, that's coming. That's coming. Let's have a quick look at makeup and the whole, why does it take so long for Victoria 9 makeup to load, and how can we make it usable on a regular Genesis figure, a regular Genesis 9 figure. Let's go and bring in my Genesis 9 figure. And then we can also have a look at these exciting morph products here that have come out, like Toon Kids and the Growing Up, because they're just so cool. Oops, wrong generation, Jay. There. Yes, exactly. That was the one. That was the one. It wasn't coffee. Yes, the hair fitting templates will be much welcomed. Yeah, currently the preferred way is to either not fit Genesis hair and just load it in without fitting it and then just put it into position. Or, Brian, if you can find this, there is a tutorial by Toyn, Toyen. He has done a little write-up in which you can use something similar that I've suggested with fitting Genesis 8 character shapes to Genesis 9. He uses a tutorial on DeviantArt that talks you through how you can make sure some of the bones and some of the morphs don't lock out because they look for things that might not be there anymore. See if you can find it.
Leave me alone, Jeff.
John's missing in action. So makeups. There is, let me put some clothing on you, and then we'll maybe just load the regular skin material, skin of the female skin number 1 on here, and zoom in, also make you more feminine than you currently are. Actor, people, and I'll say base feminine here. There we go. So the problem is that there is a product that was released that's called the Victoria 9 Makeup, and that happens under the materials here. This one here, Victoria 9 HD Makeup. And if you have that product, then you know that when you apply it to the actual Victoria figure, then it works great. But if you apply it to the Genesis figure, then there's some issues. And John and I have figured out why that is. So we thought we'd share why that is. So first of all, with this new product here, you'll see that none of these, so this is all applied with layered images, but you'll see that all these things say script in the corner here. So no matter which one you apply, everything is applied via script. So they're not single layered images, they're a stack of images. I'm just going to load all here, just making sure you know about this new trick under Edit, Preferences, Interface, this new layered textures compression slider. So I'm going to set that all the way to the right to make it load as fast as possible here. But if you also set to the left, then try to set it all the way to the right. Also make sure multi-threading is enabled so that your computer can work as fast as possible when it does that. So if I go and apply everything, then we'll have to wait a little bit because Daz Studio is now going to load about, what did I say now? 1.2 gigabytes of data. Load and then save it again, because there's so many layers of eyeshadow and lips and foundation that are being loaded, put into the correct channels, mixed together, saved out as a flat image, and then loaded again as a flat image. That's why that takes so long.
Took about, I think our best time was about 45 seconds, wasn't it?
45. And that's with all. So if you just use eyeshadow or just lips, then that's going to be a little bit faster. But yeah, just over 40 seconds. So this is the problem, and that really doesn't look great. I mean, it's good for Halloween, but this brings us to an interesting topic of where and how normal maps on a character are applied. So it appears that the solution to this puzzle is to go over to the Surfaces tab, and then under Genesis 9, we only have this on the head surface. So I'm going to go open Surfaces, and under head, I do have my regular base. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Anyone? Base? Anyone? Bueller, there we go. Base, and then in previous generations, under base there was bump, and in bump we had a normal map applied, and that's how Victoria 9 works. But in the case of the Genesis figure, I think if we just switch the normal map off, we said, then everything works fine. because the regular Genesis figure, if you load it, it doesn't actually have a normal map in here. They've applied these normal maps that ship with the character in the details layer. That is where that normal map can be found. And that is where they should be. In characters like Victoria, you can mix them together, that you can have a detail normal here, but you can have another normal map here. And if you load Victoria and you examine her, this is actually what they've done. So they've mixed two types of normal maps together, like a base normal and a detail normal. And this is the solution. So just switch off the normal map on the regular Genesis character, and then or on the regular Genesis skin material, and then you have something that looks more or less handsome.
Indeed.
But John takes all the credit for it. Should take all the credit for it, because you.
Oh no, definitely not. I asked in the PA. I was talking in the PA forum.
You did. You know, I remember now.
Yes, but and they said it's the normal map. But then you and I sort of did some testing and experimentation, completely oblivious that Genesis 9 itself doesn't have anything in that standard normal channel, and then scratching our heads as to why, and so on and so forth.
I remember now. You copied
so
that
a complete team
Sky.
effort. I can't
Sky,
take.
I say, bring Sky in.
Sky,
she made that
that's
comment.
it. Yeah.
Thank you for finding that link, Brian. That's awesome. I'm just bringing in a little slightly better light set here. I think I've actually loaded the wrong thing. I should have loaded this, and I accidentally loaded that. So I'm loading a figure as well, which I totally didn't want. But hey, that's one of those things. The foundation layer, I think that's on the... Yeah, let me go take Victoria out again. Oh! Dang! Let's do that. Let's do... My figure's gone now, isn't it?
Yes.
Figure's gone. Ain't coming back. I'm not loading that again. The foundation layer, maybe I will load that again, actually, with the lights on. Lights. Let's load another Genesis character. I'll show you the foundation layer, because we also wanted to have a quick look at the Toon kits here by Joe Quick, and also the growing up, just how beautiful that works. That was just so cool.
Even the things in Genesis where you can make her older, or her, sorry, whatever Genesis is, older or younger, or no, not younger, older. But then there's the size morphs, so you can turn her into a giant, or you can turn her into a smaller person. But the proportions work.
Yes,
it's not just a question of scaling down the figure, and it's a perfect sort of proportions, and smaller or bigger. Basically.
Yes, true. Yes, absolutely. Base feminine.
Should have saved. There's always one who doesn't save.
Yeah, there's always one. And I hate people like that. People who just don't
Usually
save. I mean, so let's go and apply the makeup again, because we like doing that. Maybe not the whole makeup. Maybe do them a bit at a time, and then we can have a look at the LIE. Okay.
To show what's happening.
So different makeup apply all. Then we have blush, eyeliner, eyeshadow, lips. So
if you look at
blush.
the LIE now, it should be more or less empty, shouldn't it?
Let's do that.
It should just have the base.
So under head, under base, under bump, first of all, no normal map, right? That's kind of, this is why this looks the way it does. And then so the makeup itself, though, I think that's applied in the detail channel, isn't it? No, it's not correct. It's applied in the makeup channel.
The makeup channel.
Currently it's off, so there's nothing in there just yet. So let's go and put maybe just the blush. Double click that. So these things are scripts, by the way, because if you switch, I don't know, red blush with green blush out, then an LIE could only add something else on top of it, but it can't have a look at, well, I need to replace the second layer. So first and third layer need to remain the same, but the second layer needs to be replaced. So an LIE preset can't do that. And this is why they're using scripts. And apparently PAs are going to get access to how to build this kind of mechanism. So currently the scripts are encrypted here, but PAs apparently are going to get access to them. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, recreating the technology wouldn't be my choice for a fun thing. Totti, I'm sure, could do it in about 2 seconds, but it would take me a while.
Totti also says Chuck Norris never saves. He just convinces the system to never crash, and he gets away with it. So
Chuck Norris can do anything, obviously, through threats and intimidation.
So in the makeup channel here, we have this that says makeup weight, which is essentially like an opacity map, isn't it? And then underneath here, this is where the actual LIE happens. So if I go on, this long cryptic number here means it's something that Daz Studio has created under the hood. So if I head over to Layered Image Editor, wait a little bit, then we can see what's going on here. So blush's on the front, on the top, then there's a foundation layer, then there's the background. So I suppose, Alan Art, in answer to your question, you can just switch the foundation off. I suppose that would get rid of the foundation. Is it still going to work?
You might have to switch it off in both areas. I'm not sure.
Like background as well?
Well, in the weight map.
Oh, the weight map has, yes, that's true. It's not just one map. It's also an LIE, isn't it? Let's see. Let's have a look at it in Iray here. And then I'll have a look at this LIE as well.
Yeah, you see the weight map is bringing in the background, which is now just black.
Terrible. And it is also an LIE, so let's go do that. Dang, the amount of stuff you have to know, you know.
Looks like a chimney sweep now.
So foundation also Gonski here on here. Apply, see what happens. This is exciting, isn't it? Poking and prodding, seeing what comes out.
Yeah.
Foundation removed. So this is important. So Alan Art makes a good point, because if you apply this on Victoria, and Victoria has these natural freckles, you may want them to come through. So you might not want that foundation layer. So
indeed.
Oh, interesting. No foundation for you. Hey Yoshi, how's it going? Is there anything else that we want to have a look at, or was that it?
Well, we did the apply makeup, didn't we?
We talked about normal maps. We talked about the...
Oh, you wanted to look at the Toon and the growing up characters.
Yes. Let's do that, because those are just too cool and too fun to ignore. They are just so exciting. I'll go and put this on.
It's a silly question. If you applied Victoria 9 to Genesis and then use the growing up morph, does that kind of work consistently?
Do you know? No. Zevo actually said that. I think somebody tried it in the forums, and Zevo corrected them and said Victoria is a full figure morph, and growing up is supposed to be blending in something. So Victoria, if you wanted to use those together, then you got to tone Victoria down, because Victoria at 100% with growing up at 100%, that's going to fight with one another. Okay.
So her teeth fall out and her eyes pop.
I mean, I think it's more a point of it just doesn't look great. So like the kid would maybe have something along the lines of breasts or whatnot. So not so pretty. So with growing up, those morphs hook into the same area that the regular Genesis morphs hook in, which is kind of nice. So I've got basic female here. I'm going to leave that basic feminine, and so we're on people, but Zevo's morphs are under the full body section here. Can we see it? Yeah, perfect. So that's under base. There's a whole section called growing up, and there's a lot of fun stuff to play with here. So the first one here is, well, the second one rather, is the youth base morph, and if you left click and drag that, the figure grows smaller and turns into a child. That is just insanely cool. So this is the youngest that you can make them. And then the old as well. It's like, anything in between there. I think he also has the presets for something if you wanted to have a 12-year-old or like a 16-year-old. But just the coolest thing is to play around with this slider here and just have, if you have a custom character, you can just blend in the kind of the child in there and then turn it into a younger version of herself. And it's just cool because the posture is corrected. Some of the facial features are corrected. And you can also go and dial these things in independently. So if you wanted to have the face younger, you can, I think, dial that in independently. Like youth head stylized, for example. You can just have that, just like the kids usually have, it appears that they have larger eyes. So you can blend that in, accentuate that a little bit more. Youth head proportions.
And can you mix the youth with the bodybuilder?
I think you can. If you have a really young bodybuilder.
Toddler bodybuilder.
Let's see if I use this. So this is like 33%. I'll put this to 30. And then you have, oh, I see, let's make it 35. And let's turn that into bodybuilder. Is that another base morph? There's fitness, muscular, heavy, lithe, mass, body tone. Do we have bodybuilder?
I don't know if we still do.
Body tone, body mass, body older, body thin. And maybe body tone. So that should stack up. Does it? Yes, it does. So that stacks up correctly. Body muscular, that's probably what that has turned into now. Yeah, there we go. Now you have like the East German child that was competing in the Olympics. Yeah, very cool. And then body heavy, so you can make your chubby child as well. It's very cool. Your skinny child. So it's what I love about the Genesis figure, and I always loved that about Genesis, is that all these things kind of play together. So yeah, the thin child, maybe the emaciated child. That's just and kudos to Zevo for bringing this out so quickly with Genesis 9. So that must have been a ton of work. I'm pretty sure he's working on a lot of other products right now, but making that available so quickly after launch rather than 6 months in or so, that's just amazing. Really, really cool. Love that. Youth body base HD detail, so you can make that HD as well. Don't know what the HD details do. You may have to switch our viewport over to preview those. Like say 3. I don't know what the level of detail is.
Is basement changing chick or Daz's basement?
What did you say? Change to this. Good point. Yes. Yes. Good point. Like, same thing goes for Joe Quick. Joe Quick did one commission for Daz, and he did a product of his own, and they were both released. Like one this week, one last week, which is the Demos HD product. That's also very cool. We're going to have a look at that in a second. And then there were the Toon kids. So sweet. I don't see details, but that might just be because I don't know where to look. That's totally fine. So yeah, growing up for Genesis 9, really, really exciting stuff. I love that. And then, yeah, like you say, if you wanted to put that together with the regular proportions, if you had a child, but you wanted to have like a taller child for their age, you can probably go and put that into, where would that be now? Proportion height, larger, smaller. It's like a midget type child. Good stuff. It is awesome. I'm having so much fun playing with these things. The giant child. So it's still a child, it's just as tall as Victoria now. Crazy stuff. The Daz sweatshop child, yes. Let's have a look at the Toon character. So Joe Quick has done some characters for the Genesis 8 generation that were these stylized children, like a little boy, a little girl, and the Toon father, the Toon dad, and the Toon mother, also Toon princess. And it's really cool to see that this is now also available for Genesis 9. I'm really excited about this. And now we can just blend in as much Toon as we want. So I think this is going to work if you wanted to do something like, to go back to your earlier question, if you wanted to blend a bit of Toonness into Victoria, I think you can do that. This comes with a skin texture and some anatomical elements, namely these cartoony type eyebrows and eyelashes here. Very funny. And this magic happens also with a slider, of course, which in our case is called the Toon Kid. So if you dial that out, then it becomes the regular Genesis figure with crazy eyebrows. And you can dial it up to 100%, and then it's like very accentuated. So that's already the magic of it. But then if we stick with this skin texture and we blend in, or we use kind of, Victoria now, and we wanted to make her a little bit Toony, then we just blend in Toon Kid, and then we have ourselves kind of a stylized female, which is kind of a stylized female Victoria. And you can make that, of course, as much or as little as you want. So maybe more Toon, less Victoria. It's kind of cool. That's now a whole different category of character that you can build. I think that's just awesome. That's really cool. So this also reminds me of the Toon Generations by 3D Universe. I don't know if Steve is working on something like that, but just very, very cool. And then, oh yeah, this is the Toon female. If we wanted to have Toon male, then we can do that as well. Toon boy. Or we can even, this is another Joe Quick product, Toon Demon Guy. That's also possible. He comes with a different texture though, so it's just unbelievable amounts of fun how you can blend these things together and just create custom characters as much as you like. Or maybe we need to have, female Toon monster. I don't know. Right? Yeah, I think that is almost all I wanted to show. Like maybe just the way this Deimos guy looks with its own textures here. Mega Deimos. He is very cool. That's another one of Joe Quick's super stylized monsters. This is basically the Genesis 9 equivalent to the old Genesis 1 troll, I think. He has horns and stuff as well. Very cool. He comes actually, this comes as part of the Deimos bundle, so there's also clothing available for him. And poses as well. That's quite nice. So materials, there's other materials. If you don't like the red, you can have this. Also not bad. Or if you wanted a gray monster, you can have that. I think they look all very, very cool. We will stick with this one here. That is probably best visible. There's also gray versions of him. Very nice. Let's take a quick look at poses for him here. Deimos Maximus poses. That's kind of cool. I think he has a little attachment from his wardrobe, like a big sword or something. And the props point, there we go. Sword wearable preset. Oh, the axe. Let's go with the axe. Holds the axe. I don't think he has a proper pose for that. So it's a bit like what you had earlier, John. It doesn't quite fit into his hand. So I suppose when you have the pose, there's some adjustments that you need to make. But just so cool. Let's see, like this, like inviting. Come hither, my child. I have surprises for you. And then running, and then about to chuck you in the face with the axe. Insanely cool. Oh, there's a pose that uses somebody else, I think, judging the victim. Hours of fun. The amount of renders we can make with all these figures. It's going to take me months to figure out how all these products work. I just thought I'm going to show you a few of these. Oh, that's me being locked in the basement now, just making renders with these creatures here for the next month or so. The gold demon, yeah, I like the gold demon as well. What was the monster made with 5,000%ing everything? I don't know. But what we could probably do, let me just go get rid of his sword here. We can we mix this together with the Toons or the growing up? I mean, maybe we have like, you know, a little monster that's just growing up, perhaps. I don't know. Can we do that? No, that's on the people here. We're on the where was that? Full body base. There we go. Growing up. Maybe the growing up youth morph. Like little monster. Oh yeah, there we go. It's cute child monster now. Whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Cute child monster. With big hooves, you know. That's exciting. Or is there like the Toon kid? Too nice him. Oh, he gets big claws that way. Interesting. Yeah, so a bit like Victorian 9, some of these things don't stack well. It was worth a try, though. I think it was worth a try.
Always worth a try.
Was there anything else? Oh, the horror. Was there anything else? Anything else we should be discussing? Any questions you may have? Mix him with the Toons and growing up. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Toon kid and growing up youth base morph. So cute. He has hefty claws, small eyes, and a large head with horns popping out. Hours of fun. They don't just hatch full size out of an egg. My friends, I think John and I are going to say goodbye and good night. It was really, really nice having you along for the ride. I'm going to put these links onto the Daz Plus forum thread that we have. If you do have any questions or suggestions for stuff that you want us to cover in the future, then drop them in that thread. It's a pinned one in the Daz Plus section. Anything that we want to do. I think for the next one, we have planned to show, I don't know if we're going to do this as a public stream or a Daz Plus stream. We have planned to show you how to convert older generation characters to Genesis 9, courtesy of R3DS Wrap, the Russian 3D scanner. So I'm going to try to do this both with the shape as well as with the textures. I think that is not something I've discussed before. How do we convert textures from one arbitrary geometry over into Genesis 9? So we'll see if that's going to be public stream or if we're going to do that in the Daz Plus forum here. Either way will work for me. If you do have any other suggestions, drop them in the comments. John, anything else that you want to say?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. I hope everybody enjoyed it and picked something up. I did.
Yeah, same here. I picked something up. This is good.
Yeah.
And yes, night hugs to you too, Biscuits, and everyone else. Thank you so much for watching. We will both see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.